a day after the military took control, uncertainty remained in Zimbabwe over the fate of the next government. The world and ordinary Zimbabweans waited for news on the next move by the military and long-serving leader Robert Mugabe, who is currently under house arrest. Here is a report. Take a look.
Military vehicles took position outside the parliament and soldiers were patrolling the streets of the Zimbabwean capital. The morning newspapers confirmed the news for ordinary citizens. The world's longest-serving leader, Robert Mugabe, had been deposed. There was an air of expectancy in Harare, yet people were returning to work.
Everything is normal, everywhere is normal, all the shops are open, people are back to work, they're at work, even yesterday. The situation is just normal.
The situation is quite okay. People, they are now returning to their jobs in a quiet way, in a good way.
The intervention by the Zimbabwe Army is very good because we are looking forward for a new Zimbabwe, a better Zimbabwe.
Even as 93-year-old Mugabe remained under house arrest, there was no clarity on the fate of his wife, Grace. Hectic political meetings were underway, but it was not known what steps the military would take next. The United Nations, the European Union and the African Union Commission called for calm.
The Secretary-General has been monitoring the evolving situation in Zimbabwe. He appeals for calm, non-violence and restraint. Preservation of fundamental rights, including freedom of speech and assembly, is of vital importance. The Secretary-General stresses the importance of resolving political differences through peaceful means and dialogue and in line with the country's constitution.
Effectivement, cette question s'est développée alors que j'étais en voyage pour Washington. Nous avons suivi de très près l'évolution. Les militaires ont affirmé qu'il ne s'agit pas d'un coup d'État. Et vous savez, au niveau de l'Union africaine, nous sommes contre tout changement anticonstitutionnel.
African Union leaders held emergency talks in Botswana as they worked out the framework of transitional government. The big question remained, who will succeed Robert Mugabe? The toss-up as of now is between Mrs. Mugabe and her rival, former Vice President Emmerson Mnangagwa. The next step could well be President Mugabe's formal resignation. Bureau Report, WION.
And to understand better what is happening in Zimbabwe, we are joined on the broadcast by Dan Ashby, WION's correspondent currently in Dar es Salaam. Thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast tonight. What more updates can you give us? What is the situation? There are sketchy details coming in. We cannot really precisely get a sense of what is going on the ground. Would you help us?
Well, it seems like it's a day where everyone in Zimbabwe is waiting to see what the future will look like. We know that the Southern African Development Community, that's the regional economic bloc, they are gathering together a super team of ministers who are negotiating, trying to get some sort of transition. Of course, talking to the military, as you say, who staged this military intervention, and President Mugabe himself, who it was confirmed is under house arrest. There have been a number of developments today. It seems that 115 civil society organisations have come out, signed a letter.
We have lost the line. We'll try to go back to it. Here we go.
Opposition.
Another question I have to ask you. Did anyone, maybe perhaps you, see this coming? Was it in the air? I mean, was it kind of forecasted that the military was having a clash with President Mugabe, or this is coming out all of a sudden?
Yes, it seemed to be building over a number of years. Of course, in the past 10, 15 years, the story of the Zimbabwean economy is one of decline, people not being able to get food off the shelves, hyperinflation of staggering amounts where the money, the notes themselves, are completely worthless. And then arbitrary arrests and anybody who seemingly opposed the Mugabes being taken out. And there's been a growing movement of frustration. There was the This Flag movement, which went viral and brought about protests on the streets. And then the military getting more and more upset. Of course, the Veterans Association, the ones who supported Mugabe himself getting to power, they pulled their support completely. So this wasn't completely unexpected. But then every time people thought that Mugabe was about to go, he clung on for another few years. 37 years in power, the world's oldest leader until the last few days. So I think people got to the stage where they thought he just never was going to go. But then the last few weeks, obviously the military, various other political actors have said enough's enough. and here we are today.
And Dan, another question I have for you. What's the way forward now? What is going to happen? I mean, now the military seized power, but they have not announced precisely the way forward. Is it election? Is it a proper military coup? Nothing is going to happen? The generals are taking care of this?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question. Is this a military coup, the type of which we have seen all across Africa, where the military install their own leaders, or are they telling the truth when they say this is just an intervention to stop the country spiralling into conflict? What we do know is that the military seem to be very much in support of Emmerson Mnangagwa. He used to be President Mugabe's right-hand man. He used to be one of the country's top politicians until fairly recently, when he fell out with Mugabe and was exiled from the country. Now, be under no mistake, Mnangagwa himself is accused of human rights abuses. He was the spy master general when there were the Matabeleland crisis, where tens of thousands of people who were against Mugabe were killed. Mugabe and Mnangagwa were both accused of widespread atrocities, and Mnangagwa is known as the crocodile because of the way he operates. At the moment, he seems to be the favourite to take over from Mugabe, and people want to know, is this going to be Mugabe number 2, or what are we seeing here? A move towards democracy that so many people have called for in Zimbabwe. These opposition parties who are saying they want law and order, they want to share power in a credible way, not where they're sidelined by Mugabe, but actually taking part in free and fair elections where they can say their mind. That's what they want. At the moment, it remains to be seen which path Zimbabwe is going to go down.